Hi, I'm Chris Jackson from the Stop Holding Back Foundation. You're listening to the My Stuttering Life podcast hosted by Pedro Pena. Let's get started.
What's up, guys? This is Pedro from My Stuttering Life, where you will hear the good, the bad, the very ugly. We're gonna laugh, we're gonna cry, but through it all, just know that you are not alone. So, let's get started. This is episode number 44, and my special guest is Lanny Morris. Mr. Morris is a 47-year-old association executive in the world of not-for-profit, non-government entities and states that his stutter is his friend. Mr. Morris is happily married with 2 children and enjoys life on the Treasure Coast of Florida. I am honored to have him as a guest with me on the My Stuttering Life podcast. Welcome, Mr. Morris.
Thank you, Pedro. It's good to be here.
Thank you, sir. Great to have you. We have a lot of topics to cover, so let's get started, sir.
Okay. I'm ready when you are.
Okay. Do you remember when you first began to stutter?
I think so. I know that's. I was just to let you know a little bit about my life. I'm the youngest child of a naval officer, and we moved around. And literally, I was the new kid every 3 to 4 years. But the first time I've been thinking about this ever since you and I were talking. When we moved from Annapolis, Maryland, after my 4th grade year to Texas. Corpus Christi, Texas. And looking back, that is the first time I was going to be the new kid in school. I had been in school in Maryland, so I didn't really know what I was up against. And my first day of class, I wasn't the most confident kid, and I'm not beating myself up. It's just the truth. I remember the first day of class, I asked this kid, Kevin, what time lunch was. And when I said the word lunch, my stomach curdled because I stuttered on that word and I could barely get it out. And of course, Kevin, who ironically ended up being one of my best friends, he made fun of me in class. So I believe, and actually too, Pedro, when I was born in Spain, and I spoke Spanish before I ever spoke English. And it was a very generic form of Spanish. It was, mommy and daddy, I have to go to the bathroom, or can you pass the salad? I love salad for some reason. I was a kid. And he said I'd crawl on the table and eat it. So there could have been a language transition barrier there, but I really do believe that the core of it was the intimidation of becoming, for the first time in my life, the new kid at a school at 5th grade, which should be a fun time in a kid's life. But when you find out you have a stutter, it kind of stinks. So I hope that wasn't a long-winded way to answer your question, but that's when I truly believe that that's when I started.
No, sir. You did great. Now, you moved to my hometown. I was born and raised in Corpus Christi, Texas.
You're kidding me.
No.
I did not know that. Hand to God, I did not know that. I was going to ask you where you were from.
Yes, sir. I moved to Houston in 1995 when I was 25 years old.
Okay.
Because they had the colleges and school program that what I was going for. Because basically the only people who do well back home in Corpus, those who are lawyers, those who are doctors, and those who are military and those who work in the tourism business, they do really well there, but they really didn't have a mental health program that I was needing. Therefore, that's why I moved to a bigger town. And let me tell you, Houston is it's huge.
Oh, isn't it the 4th largest city in the country? And I know what you mean about Corpus. And also, if you're a professional surfer, you might do pretty well.
Right.
And that's what was And that's what was very intimidating about it too for me, Pedro, is we're the cool, tough surfers, and had a lot of Mexican friends who were just great guys, and beautiful beach people. So it wasn't easy for a kid like me going there. But well, kudos to you. Where did you go to school in Houston?
Well, I went to the University of Houston.
Okay.
That's where I obtained my bachelor's and then my master's degrees.
Good for you. You've got a master's in mental health studies. Is that what it is?
My master's is in industrial organizational psychology.
Oh, okay. That never heard of that one, but
We know. Basically, I teach groups, learn their dynamics, learn, those who take charge, those who do not. And my goal is to have them all work together in harmony.
Well, wonderful. That sounds very admirable, Pedro. No,
Thank you, sir.
I'm serious, and those aren't just words. And I want to tell you, by the way, I hope I'm not like jumping ahead or going behind, but before we started this, I wanted to make it a point to tell you that I really enjoyed your podcast on manifesting.
Oh, thank you, sir.
And but you and I guess I'm younger than you. I'm 47. You said on that podcast that you're 48.
Well, last week I turned 49, so it's all good.
Oh, happy belated birthday.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Though I feel 28, so it's all good.
You and me both. I
Yep.
feel 25 sometimes.
And so, does it run in your family? Do you have other people who stutter in your family?
No, I've got a very big family. My more so on my dad's side. He is one of 9 kids, and no one stuttered. I don't know of anyone distant relatives that stuttered. And just to kind of define my stutter, to answer that question, no. And I don't want to answer another question you might have, but no, the answer is no. It's much to my surprise, no one in my family, my mom's side or my dad's side, and that's what made it awkward growing up and meeting my cousins, and it taking me 30 seconds to say my first name, surprised them, but no others. So it's definitely, I guess it's not a genetic thing. So anyway, that was to answer your question. Sorry if I jumped around there.
Oh, no. No worries. With my family, my mom stuttered, but she had told herself during a point in her life that she was done with it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she had told herself, that's it, I'm done stuttering, and she stopped, and
That's amazing. Was that kind of a mentally, like, she mentally willed herself into stopping, or did she?
I mean, it could have
Did she
been
take
anything, multiple
right?
things.
Or was it this, or did she get it from you with the manifesting thing?
Well, I hope so. I love to
Well, you should
manifest
give yourself a little
everything.
credit there. You should give yourself a little credit.
Yes, sir. So, growing up, had you ever had speech therapy?
Oh God, yeah, I did. I went to college at a small liberal arts college that had a learning disability. It was called the Learning Center, and a lot of my friends have learning disabilities, everything from dyslexia to you name it. And I actually worked there. I'm telling you that because it draws a parallel to when kids are, adults our age back then, when they didn't know what was wrong with you, they would drag you out of class and send you down to this little room in a basement with no windows. And that was my memory in Corpus. Was my mom and dad didn't know what was going on, so they called the counselor, and they found the speech pathologist that came. And I remember during class, this woman coming in and saying, Lanny Morris, and I had to raise my hand, said, come with me. And it wasn't, I don't think it was all that embarrassing because no one knew what it was. But yeah, starting from fifth grade, all the way through about eighth grade, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth. So about 4 years or so of maybe once a week working on it, everything from the breathing to the reading to the physical exercises. I don't mean calisthenics by any means, but there was one I remember in Corpus, the overhead projectors, which I know they don't have anymore, but this the instructor would put a piece of paper down, and it would be a word, and you had to breathe and just try to say the word. And I'm probably telling you what you already know, Pedro, but L's and W's and S's I hated. She had this alphabet of wooden blocks, and it was the alpha, A, B, C. They each were wooden blocks with a letter on them. And I still remember to this day the word watermelon popping up. And I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and just I'm going to imitate how I sounded, but it was whoa, 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 whoa. And she said, just breathe, whoa, 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 whoa. And she said, just hit that damn letter. So I took the mallet and I just smashed the letter W, and then I screamed watermelon. It felt very good, and I even did that with my own name, because I think if my mom knew that she was going to name me Lanny, she probably would have rethought it, because I used to. Oh, I still to this day sometimes when I stutter, I stutter on my name and I spell it out for people, pretending like well, hey, I just wanted to spell it because I didn't want you to think I was Lenny or Larry. Yes, I did do therapy. I appreciated it. I loved all my therapists. They were wonderful.
Yes, mine throughout grade school and junior high and high school, and then some in college, and then when I was in the military, I did hypnosis.
No kidding. I think I remember you sharing that on your Manifest podcast, but I did not know you were in the military. Did you join the Navy because of the naval base in Corpus?
No, sir. I'm in the U.S. Air Force.
Oh, well, thank you for your service, Pedro. Seriously.
Thank you, sir. I was in the Persian Gulf War. My job was bombs. We would build up the bombs and missiles during the Persian Gulf War. I was stationed in Turkey, and so we would build up the bombs. Then we would put them on pallet jacks. We would do that for 12 hours a day.
Oh my gosh! Wow. Now, when you say because I think you and I being close in age, I remember Desert Storm. I was a freshman in college, 1990.
That was it.
Yeah. I remember me and like one of my friends, like, I hope to God we don't get drafted, because I think they were having serious conversations about bringing it back.
Thankfully that was like, more than 20 years ago. And so I don't think
20, yeah, almost 30.
Oh my God, that's right.
Yeah, almost 30.
Okay, thank you, Lanny. I feel so much younger now. Thank you very much.
I didn't mean to correct you on your math.
It's all good.
Okay.
Math is not my strong suit, so it's all good.
Well, you and me both.
You were talking about when they would call you out of school for speech therapy. During my time in speech therapy, they would call your name out over the PA, tell you to report to the office for speech therapy. And so everyone knew, oh yeah, there goes Pedro. And getting up, and walking out, it's like, I mean, they're all just looking at you. And it's
Wasn't
like,
that the worst?
Right. Yeah. I was like, all right. Yes. We would go.
Were you the only one in your grade or in your school?
I was the only one.
Yeah. Well, misery loves company. I was too, man. I was hoping there'd be another kid or kids in the class, and it was just me and this very nice woman who said, "Hey, we'll get through this, and we'll help you out," and it did a lot of good.
Right. You were also talking about letters that gave you difficulty. Basically, for me, I have trouble with every letter in the alphabet, especially the S's. The letter S is my nemesis. I mean, there are days that I will just spend a long time trying to get that out. I have my good days, I have my bad days, but I mean, I try to just get it out uh, 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 as best that I can.
Well, I'm right there with you. Pedro, S's and the L's and the glottal in the back of your throat, and trying to just, I think I got to tell you, I with that and the L and the W, I'm sure there's others, the T as well, but I got to a point where I did theater in high school, and
Oh, me
I got
too.
to oh, cool. Well, we should talk about that. But I remember people would ask me something, and I would know what the word was, but I knew in the back of my mind I couldn't say it. I wasn't going to be able to say it without stuttering. So I pretended, I'd close my eyes and go, God, what was that word? And then I would breathe and I say, oh, I know what you're thinking of. And then I would say the word, and for some reason, it would just roll off my tongue. So I became a good actor in that regard, I think. I think that really improved my theater skills, pretending like I didn't know it. And it was fake, but I think the other person thought, well, wow, this guy really couldn't think of what that word was.
Right.
What kind of theater were you in? Were you in musicals and plays, or well, I guess those are the only two.
Right. During high school, that was a rough period for me speech wise. No one wanted
Sure,
to hang out with a kid who stuttered and sputtered and spit. And it wasn't really a good look for me. And so I wanted to, join a group to kind of help me not be so alone. And so
sure, to feel accepted, because the theater people are very compassionate, and
they welcomed
well,
me
hey,
in.
Pedro, I got to ask, going back, how the hell did you get through auditions? That was my number one absolute fear. Reading, oh my God.
This is what helped me out a great deal. Many of them in there, I mean, 99%, they were supportive.
Sure.
They were there to help you, guide you, lift you up. And many people had told me joining the drama club as a stutterer, that's never going to work because you can't talk. But once I got in there, and every person was just so supportive. How can I help you? How can I work with you? Because you have energy, and that is what we are looking for. And so during an audition, I had a couple of my drama buddies there with me, and they were just giving me all of their positive energy and their positive vibes, which helped me do the part. Plus, during the audition, I wasn't Pedro. I was a whole different character, and that character did not stutter. Therefore,
Oh, there you go. So
yeah,
you were already in character before you got the part,
yes,
the
I
audition.
was.
That's fantastic.
Yes. Being in the drama club, it helped me grow in a lot of ways in high school. Going to speech tournaments during the weekends, I did prose, poetry, and oration. We did also one act plays. Um,
Okay. Well, yeah. Well, that must have helped.
yes, those were just phenomenal because I would be up on stage and there was a huge audience, and there were a lot of people who were in the audience just looking at me with their mouth open. Like, how can how can he be on stage because he stutters? There is no way on earth that he could do that. But what I believe is if you have people around you who support you, who are going to lift you up and guide you and be there for you, you can do anything.
Yes, you can, my friend. And that's isn't it ironic how on stage in front of a lot of people you're just this you escape into this other person, and that's what I think probably, I mean, you probably know this, but James Earl Jones, the great actor, he had a stutter, a really bad stutter, and he found his escape into the arts, into acting, and being one of the greatest actors of our time.
Yes, One of his favorite quotes that I say all the time is, "This is CNN."
Well, he was on David Letterman once, and I remember David Letterman asked him very, in David Letterman style, and he said, is it true that you have a stutter? And James Earl Jones says, yeah. And he goes, if you allow me to keep talking long enough tonight, it will definitely come out. So I think for him, it was this kind of this progressive thing, but I guess that's why he was kind of a not that much of a guy that was on so many interviews. But he and David Letterman had a special relationship, I guess, from at least from what I've read.
Right. There are many actors who stutter, like Bruce Willis. Then you have
Oh, I didn't know about Bruce Willis. Okay.
oh, he had a really bad stutter. Then you have Samuel L. Jackson.
Samuel L. Jackson. No
Yeah.
kidding.
Now, how he handled it, from what I have heard, is that he would use the F word to help him out. And so if you listen to him, there are a lot of F bombs as he is talking, from what I have read. But then I was, thinking about it. I can't really do that. I can't drop F bombs here and F bombs there. That just won't work for me at this moment. But
No, and it's too easy for those for those words to come across as they say crutch words, because so many comedians, there are very few comedians that don't curse. Jerry Seinfeld, Brian Regan, the ones that people might not necessarily like more than other comedians, but it's a crutch word. It is a crutch word.
there are many that I use, like and and then da, 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 da. And so
Sure.
those help me get over the hump. And once
Mhm.
I'm there, I'm pretty okay once I get over the hump.
It helps, and I wouldn't. I don't apologize for saying and ah, especially if I'm using them as crutch words to figure out to finally say what I know I need to say, and what's inhibited me in my mind and in the back of my mouth is to say the word.
Right. So, do you have any advice for parents or teachers with regards to children who stutter?
My Both of my parents were wonderful. I think they were confused at the time because they just went to the principal and said, what do we do here? I didn't want to go to school. And I think the advice I'd give these days, and thank God it's kind of like, Asperger's and autism these days, where as early as a generation ago, the parents were the ones that were uh, blamed for it. But now I would encourage parents to say to their children, this is not a disease. This is a condition. It doesn't make you. It's not a bad thing. It's not a wrong thing. Give it time, and if you let it become your friend, you'll just walk around, like going back to that manifest, surrounding yourself with positive people, not just because if you stutter, but for every other reason in the world. My advice would be just to communicate and maybe say, look, this is a physical thing. Practice breathing, but mentally don't think that there's anything wrong with you because of this, because it will eventually become your friend as you mature and as you become more confident. That would be my advice. And for teachers as well, I would just hope that they're learning in school that's they're going to come across this, and to just not allow bullies to make fun of people who have this. That would be my advice. I remember once hearing this man give a speech who was dyslexic, and he had ended up becoming a pediatric neurosurgeon. And he said, I allowed dyslexia to become my friend, and that's when I realized that the impossible was possible. So embrace it. Don't try to put a shield up and let it bounce off your shield. It's always going to get you. It's always going to come back. So let it, because it's not going to hurt you. That
Right.
would be my advice, Pedro.
How cool. Because I tell people, don't fight it. I mean,
No,
because
you're not going to. Well, I mean, it's not alcoholism, it's not drug addiction, but it's something you can't help. And so if it's something you can't help, but if you learn to manage it, and I hope to God I didn't just interrupt you, but if just wake up and say, how do I make this my companion? And it, it, that would be my advice.
That's good advice, because I talk to people who stutter, and they tell me that they have a daily struggle with it, and they fight to talk on the phone, and they fight to ask for directions, and they fight
Mm.
when they are trying to order at a restaurant. And so I tell them, stop fighting it, because what I did, I welcomed it into my life. And by that, I told myself, okay, I'm Pedro, I stutter, life goes on. When I did that, when I welcomed it into my life, when I embraced it, that's when everything had turned in a positive way for my life. That's when I was viewing everything as half full. I was being positive, and then also stepping out of my comfort zone. That was big for me, because I would challenge myself every day to just step out of my comfort zone and just get a win. Give me a W. That way I can build that momentum for the next day. And so day after day after day, I'm getting a win, and a win. And by the law of momentum, I am gaining confidence.
Yeah, and I would add to the momentum, and that was beautiful what you just said, and I think also it's a matter of healthy redundancy. It's redundant, and you can't win. You can't take a pill and make it all go away, and that's why. Yeah, that's why I think the easement of it is, and also when you said ordering something in a restaurant or at the drive-through, when you're dealing with people who perhaps for no fault of their own just don't understand, or perhaps have never met somebody who does have a stutter, they react in such a way that is not offensive, but they show their surprise. And it's good to know that 90% of the people, if not 99%, percent of the people out there will hear it and listen and just take their time with you and not even bring it up. I mean, nor should they if they don't know you, and to take their time with you. And I think it's a reminder that most people are pretty inherently good. And I think in my mind, growing up, afraid to talk to people and introduce myself, to get that weird, awkward reaction like, oh my God, what's wrong with this kid? I see now as a grown up, and even from my late 20s, that if it happens, it might it might even come across as being even charming at times.
Right, exactly.
So but yeah, that's my reaction to what you said, because I would. Isn't it ironic too how uncomfortable you'd be talking to people you don't know, the people at the drive-through, the server at the restaurant, the banker at the teller, and how there was that shameful feeling like, God, I wonder what they think about me because I couldn't get that sentence out. But who gives a damn? And I don't want to curse on your podcast, but that was a minor curse. You can edit that out. But anyway, so let me ask you, Pedro, what if you don't mind me asking you a question, I mean, I can only guess what inspired you to start your podcast, and kudos to you for doing that. I learned about your podcast at the podcast movement this past year in Orlando. I just want to give you such high praise for, again, kind of stepping outside of yourself to say, you know what, there's this great new medium. I wonder who else out there is it. I mean, how long did it take you to get this off the ground?
Well, one big catalyst is once I turned 40, that's when I didn't care what people were
Good. And
thinking.
bravo to you again. When I heard that in my car on the way home, I'm not trying to be trying to sound sappy, but it almost brought a tear to my eye, man.
Oh, thank you, sir. Because before I turned 40, talking to people, they would do one of two things. They would either look at their watch or they would make up an excuse that they had to be somewhere else and they would cut me off and just,
Oh God.
walk away. That just hit me hard. I mean, it hit me in the gut. I mean, it just hit me everywhere. But after I turned 40, that's when I told myself, that's it. I am tired because if you are a person who stutters, from the time you wake up until the time you go to bed, your whole body is tense. Every organ in your body is tense because you are trying to get the word out. When I would come home from work, let me tell you, I was drained mentally, physically, psychologically, just completely drained. I would just plop on the couch and just pass out. And so I was telling myself, that's no way to live your best life. And that's when I said, okay, I'm done. I'm done. I don't care what you think about my stutter. Your opinion of me will not be my reality. And once I did that, I said, I am on a roll. That's when I was going into personal development and read a whole bunch of books by Mel Robbins, John Maxwell, Jim Rohn, Les Brown. He is my all time favorite. And these mentors, because they all have their own stories, yet they all persevered and they are all successful people. And that is what I wanted. When I was learning about myself, it, took a couple of years, but when I was all done, I thought, okay, I'm sure there are other people like me who think that they were all alone in this world. Then I thought, let me start a YouTube channel first, see how that goes. And then I dove into podcasting. And there was a doubt. There was a huge doubt, like who would listen to a person who stutters on a podcast? Because basically you would just hear plosives and some heavy breathing. Okay, now granted, there are some people who would like to hear the heavy breathing, but they are not my target audience. I wanted to have people who also had a speech impediment to learn from what I had learned because I've been stuttering for 43 years. And that
Mhm.
is a very long time. I have stories about everything regarding my stutter that I wanted to get out there. That way, other people who stuttered, who live in India or Pakistan, Australia, England, know that they are not alone, that we are all in this together. And by having this podcast, we are helping one another.
That's beautiful. In those countries that you mentioned, some of them might not have as socially acceptable mores and values that we have in America and and in other countries. And I was honestly, when you said YouTube channel, I did you make videos of yourself, like talking to the camera about this, or because I didn't know you had a I didn't know you had a YouTube channel.
Well, yes, sir. I do have a YouTube channel called My Stuttering Life. And so you can watch me visually. I'm there talking to the camera. Basically, the topics that I cover in the podcast, I also turn into videos. That way, those who would, because people are different, many people would just prefer the video version, and some people prefer the audio version. And so I just give them the best of both worlds.
Okay. Okay, so that's still okay. Wonderful. Well, good. I didn't know that was up still, Pedro.
Oh,
Pedro,
yes, sir.
let me ask you. You're obviously a year or two ahead of me. Did you go to Flower Bluff?
Oh, that was on the opposite, and I went to Tolosa Midway.
Oh, okay, okay, yeah. We went to Flower Bluff. I was fifth, sixth, and seventh grades when I lived there. I wish I could have stayed there through high school, but my dad got he got transferred. So
That was a nice area. All the
yeah.
water.
Oh yeah, yeah. Padre Island, and yeah, it's
Oh yeah,
still
that
great.
was.
So
Oh yeah, brings back memories of
it
you know.
does, it does. But
Okay, speaking of jobs, had you ever had job discrimination because of your stutter?
not that I'm aware of. um, I don't know if I had stuttered, they went into the back room and say, I don't know if we can have this guy pick up the phone because he's got a he's got a pretty obvious stutter. It was easy for me to hide, so I really have to say, in all truth, I don't think it ever prevented me from getting a job. But I know there have been interviews that I was on in my early career where in my 20s, I definitely did have a stronger stutter. And I was going to begin even this with a preface to you, Pedro, that I might not even stutter on this podcast just because it was much worse for me as a younger child. And I know it's not a curable thing, but still, from I just really appreciate what you do and wanted to be a part of it. But no, from an employment workforce standpoint, if I didn't get a job because I stuttered, then I didn't need them anyway, and screw them. So
Right on.
that's my take,
Yes, sir.
because it's
Now,
none of their business if I stutter. But
right.
I mean, I would honestly understand if if I don't know why someone who stutters would want to go after a job as like a 911 dispatch operator. I know that, or even a pilot. I mean, there would be some challenges there, but for the most part, the jobs that I've gone for, in my experience as an association executive and sales and conference planning and things of that nature, it never got in the way.
How cool. Now, many people who have speech impediments, they fall into a depression because of it. Did that ever happen with you?
That's that. I love that question because and I'm not dodging it, but I don't know, but I do know this. When I was in my late 20s, I had some periods where I would find myself kind of just staring off into the distance when I was watching TV. I was single and had my own studio. I got very anxious and worried, probably job related, life related. Where am I going in this world? And so I got on medication because of that. But I don't know if I can put my finger on whether my childhood as a pretty bad stutterer, it is what eventually kind of made that one of the reasons why. Depression is a strong word, and I don't think I ever got depressed by my stuttering. Again, I just kind of dealt with it because I knew I couldn't help it. And my parents, as wonderful as they are, and my brother and my sister, just always, hey, this is just, there's nothing wrong with it. Even my poetry teacher, I told her I didn't want to read my poems out loud in college, and she said, why? And I said, well, I tend to stutter when I read. And she said, so? And she was, and I don't want to digress from your question about being depressed or anything, but I think perhaps it might have had something to do with me probably needing medication later on in life, and in my late 20s, and even still today, which really helps me. I remember I told my doctor when he prescribed, and I said, sometimes I deal with stuttering when I'm nervous, and he said, well, this medication will most likely help abate most of that. So I guess my answer to you, Pedro, is perhaps, but I think it was, if stuttering was in the equation, it was one of many other things that were in the same equation.
Right. Okay. Many people that I talk to, they self-medicate with alcohol and drugs to, help cope with their stutter. Had you ever tried that?
No, Short answer, no. I never felt like I had to self-medicate because of my stuttering alone. Perhaps my anxiety, I probably went through bouts of that didn't get too out of hand. But again, maybe the stuttering was in my subconscious, but I was never really ashamed of it after a certain point in my life. So, I never went to drugging or for drinking because I was ashamed of how I spoke. I just got to a point where it's me and who cares?
There was a time when rum and coke was my best friend.
Oh, that's a good buddy and a good enemy too.
Let me tell you, when Pedro is on his third rum and coke, there is no stuttering.
That hey, alcohol helps. It is the social lubricant, and it definitely helps.
Well, many people have told me that I should drink more often, but that's just not a viable option right now.
Well, may I ask, are you a drinker? I mean, do you drink
Oh, no, no,
occasionally
no,
or?
no. Oh, no, no. My parents were strict, and so basically now I drink every now and then.
Okay, I wasn't trying to fire the same question back to you,
Oh no,
but
sir. No, it's all good.
no, I'm from an Irish family, and my dad was in the Navy, so drinking's it's at the center and the nucleus of mostly everything we do. Plus, we live in South Florida now, so it's kind of hard when people come down for vacation and everyone wants to do the same thing. But
Right.
anyway,
Day in and day out. Now, let me talk about this topic is what many people who stutter, there are many different answers, but what is your coping strategy that you use most often that helps you with your stutter?
my coping strategy is breathing. I don't think you can ever perfect anything along those lines, Pedro, but I just sort of take my time and not worry about how long it takes me to answer a question or give an opinion or a statement. I breathe in, and if the word I'm looking for I know is going to collapse out of my mouth, I think of a synonym for that word. That's really the biggest part of my coping. And yeah, I think everything else is kind of somewhat minor, but really breathing and the art. I don't meditate. I probably should, but it's breathing and smiling. Honestly, I know that might sound kind of corny, but smiling helps.
You are 100% correct because when I do diaphragmatic breathing,
Hmm.
when I do the exhale, that's when I speak. And that has helped me tremendously. And then also, like what you were talking about, if you are smiling as you are talking, for some reason, for me, I mean, that just puts me at ease. I'm having a good time, and the words are coming out, and I mean, it's just all good.
Yeah. No, it's me. You sound people sound different when they smile. It's like the art of voiceover when they say, "Look, do that with a big smile on your face," and they play it back to you, and it sounds different. It's much more compelling. It's much more upbeat. You watch anything. I don't subscribe to Tony Robbins. I respect him, but he's not smiling at any second of his you know huge presentations, energetic presentations. But
Yes, he is always smiling in
always,
every video, in every, I mean, in every aspect of his life, he is just smiling.
I just wish our president would do that when he spoke more often.
So this topic, when you answer, when many people who stutter, when they give me the answer, it's just split right down the middle, 50-50. Let me pose this to you. When you are alone, can you speak without stuttering?
Wow, I don't think I've ever thought about that or even had that question before. I talk to myself all the time in whispers. My daughter Mary Rose, who's 9 years old, always says, "Dad, what are you saying to yourself?" I never stutter when I'm whispering. That's a wow. I'm going to think about that question for a long time after this, Pedro. I've never thought about that. I don't. It's kind of like saying, do you stutter in your dreams?
Yes, I
I
do.
oh you
I
how do
stutter
you know?
everywhere. I stutter everywhere.
How do you know you stutter in your dreams? Do you remember it?
I do. My dreams are very vivid. Dreaming about everything. I mean, I dream of being on the beach and trying to talk. Maybe I'm on a boat and there's a big great white coming at the boat, and I'm stuttering, trying to ask for help. I mean, basically, I stutter in the shower. I stutter when I'm alone. I stutter in my backyard. I mean, it's just I
Well,
mean,
it's a part of you. It's a part of
right,
you, honestly.
right.
Yeah. Yeah. But talking to myself, I don't think I've ever really, I'm going to start paying attention now. And because you asked me that question, I'm probably going to start stuttering when I talk to myself, Pedro. Thank you for that.
Okay, this is the
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
this is the follow-up. So, have you ever had a person ask you if you have forgotten your name when a person has greeted you?
You know what? No, but I remember I went to this wedding in Washington D.C. and my girlfriend at the time was friends with this very wealthy snob of a woman. She was awful, and maybe a good person, but just such a rich kid. And I remember meeting this family and just feeling so intimidated. And this guy came up and, you know, almost like a politician and, put his hand out and said, I can't remember what his name was, but he said, "I'm Joe." And I remember thinking to myself, and he leaned in and said, "And your name is?" And I could tell there was some sarcasm there. And I said, "It's Lanny." And I spelled it. And he said, "Why'd you spell it?" And I said, "Well, I didn't want you to think it was Lenny or Larry." And that was my acting. Because again, I knew in my head and in my mouth, I was going to vomit my name out in 20 different syllables in a stutter. But I don't think he thought I forgot my name, but it was a pretty hefty, pregnant pause between him asking me what my name was and me actually telling him. And he looked confused and he's like, "All right then," and smacked my hand like a politician would and said, you know, "I'll see you around." And that was one of the biggest memories that I wish I could go back and just poise up like my confident self today and say, my name's Lanny, you SOB. So
Yes, there are many times where I have just spelled it out and just had them figure it out because P's are just hard for me. When I do a P, it's like I'm throwing a kiss, like Pedro Pena. And you know,
damn you, Mom, for naming me Pedro.
I'm telling you, people would ask me, are you kissing me? No, sir, I'm not.
Oh
I'm
God, that's
trying to say
funny.
my name.
That is funny. That is funny.
This is just me, and P's are just really hard for me.
Are not fun. P's are not as bad as S's, but they're
Oh,
but they suck.
they rank right up there. Yes, sir.
Yeah, they rank right up there.
So let's change gears and talk about your career path. How did you handle job interviews? Because they are pretty stressful for the everyday individual. But if you're a stutterer, it's like 20 times harder.
Yeah, I think early on in my career when I didn't know what I wanted to do, I was living and working in Washington, D.C. And in the world of associations, you're up against a lot of competition because that's where a lot of folks that do what I do live and work. And I I had a hard time, but I do remember this one time, this woman, Barbara, I ended up getting the job and she said, you're one of about six candidates. And she said, do you mind if I ask you something? I might not be allowed to ask you this. And I said, sure. And she said, do you have a stutter? I said, yeah, I have a little bit of a stutter when I get nervous. And she said, I think that's so charming. And she said, but I'm going to base this on your personality and your resume. And I was hired. And that's another thing I would encourage to tell other people who have had stuttering problems or still do, or the parents to say, you can do anything. This could be something for a person with a good heart will look at this as something charming and not as a handicap. But no, all in all, in my career, I think after that, as I got older, I didn't have a problem. I honestly, without beating my chest, I'm pretty good at interviewing, and stuttering really never gets in the way because unless it's a job I really, really, really want and need, it might it might rear its ugly head. But for all in all, it has never really gotten in the way.
Job interviews
Oh, they
for
suck.
me, I mean, it was a nightmare because many of the jobs that I would go for and were highly qualified for, they would email me that my job application has made the next level. Okay. Now, face to face in a job interview, the number one tip that has helped me is for every job interview, I just disclose right off the bat. I walk in, good morning. My name is Pedro Pena. I have a speech impediment. I battle to be fluent every day, but I win that battle every day. And looking at the people doing the job interview, their eyes get all big. They have a huge smile. And that tells me that I have already won them over.
I was just going to ask you, what kind of reaction do you get like immediately from these people? I mean,
It's
that's
positive.
honorable. That's
Yes.
very honorable.
However, when they would email me and tell me that I have made the next level, but we have to do a telephone panel job interview. My
Oh God. Oh God.
my heart went into my left shoe, and that's when I would email them back and that I would have to lie to them and tell them thank you, but I have already taken another job, which I hadn't. That was a huge lie. But I could not handle a telephone panel with like five people. I, I mean, that was just beyond traumatic because I have a hard time with my H's. It's like heavy breathing, like, and what if I'm trying to answer a question and all they're hearing is heavy breathing? Do they A, call 911 or B, just hang up on me?
Yeah. No, it's you know what when you get those calls for the panels over the phone, it's for the greater good that you give them that white lie and you tell them that you've already accepted that another position. So
There were jobs that were perfect, that paid extremely well, but it hurt.
it's too hard.
I mean, it hurt me physically, and it sure hurt me financially because I I would have loved to have that high paying job. But, at that time, I knew what I could and could not do. And panel, telephone, job interviews, I just could not do. I
I
just
don't
couldn't.
blame. I don't blame you. I don't blame you.
Now, here is a hot topic that just gets everybody up off of their chair and extremely animated. So, how is dating as a stutterer?
Oh God. Um. Uh. Bringing the telephone back up, I remember freshman year there was this girl that I was in love with upon first sight. Everybody else was too, and she was this hockey player or field hockey player. And I remember I got her number somehow, and I called her and I stuttered. And I mean, I'm still convinced to this day that I never got a date with her because I stuttered on the phone. And she said, "Why don't you talk to me Monday in class?" And I said, "Oh God, that's going to be worse than this phone call." So it probably put a bruise into it. but I don't know. I think because of it, I didn't. It made me not want to have that big of a desire to even have girlfriends in high school. If it happened, it happened, and if it did, I would make for it for what it was.
Well, you are married, correct?
Correct. I have a wife, wonderful, beautiful wife. We met in New York City. We have two children, a 12-year-old boy and a 9-year-old girl. And I don't think she knew I even stuttered until I told her that I might stutter from time to time. But, it rarely comes out with just her and I because she gives me great confidence and she's just a wonderful partner.
How awesome.
Yeah.
You know,
How about you? Are you married, Pedro?
yes, I am. I've been with the same person since 1995. And this was a blind date. It was a
Oh, no
blind date.
kidding. That's how my wife and I got together, too.
I mean, there were literally no words. It's just when the eyes locked in, that was it.
That's
That was
great,
it.
man. That's a story you don't hear that often. So good.
Yes, I am blessed. I'm blessed. Now,
Well, good for you.
what has what has stuttering taught you?
What a stuttering has taught me. I think earlier on when I knew it was something I was just trying to work on to not extinguish. I knew I could never extinguish it, but it has. I honestly believe that it has taught me to be, not to sound hokey or anything, but I'm grateful for it because I'm compassionate to other people who have stutters, but to also those who have other conditions in their life that probably embarrass them or make them feel, second class or less than. I mean, it's taught me to be, I believe it's taught me to honestly be, as trite as it might sound, to be a better person and to be cognizant of, I mean, bullyism these days is such a prevalent issue. And I can only imagine that the kids in high school and grade school and elementary school who stutter are probably undergoing such a daunting period with that. And I can only hope that teachers can think about that and be be sensitive to that. But it honestly has taught me to just be accepting of all others, and that there's no one better than you. There's no one worse than you, but you're all different.
You are 100% correct. And so, what advice would you give to another person who stutters?
Well, my advice would be, depending on the age of that person, a little kid probably gets a lot different advice than an adolescent or a teenager or even someone in their 20s or 30s. But don't be afraid to seek treatment for it. It's not a disease. Don't be afraid to go talk to somebody to get, perhaps the simplest of daily exercises to help you get through it and to live it. And don't be ashamed of it, and to eventually just smile and make it your friend.
That is an awesome answer because I made my stutter my friend. And
Good for
every
you.
day when I wake up, I tell myself, this will be an awesome day. And then I start my day on a positive note. And, granted, I have my good days, I have my bad days, but I have positive people around me to help me when I'm in those bad days. They will help me out, talk to me, lift me up, and that helps me to pick myself up and move on because I can't tell you how many times I have failed and failed and failed, but every time I fail, I learn from it, and then I apply what I have learned to the next day. That way, as I'm b- 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 building the momentum and self confidence, that just keeps me going.
Well, those are beautiful words, Pedro. And I know I use the analogy of an alcoholic, and I know it's a little bit different. It's kind of a stretched analogy, but there's no shame in this. I mean, with alcoholism, there's no shame in admitting that you might have the only shame is knowing you might want to do something about it to feel better about yourself and not doing anything about it. But it doesn't mean anybody with stuttering has to force themselves to go seek this therapy or that therapy. But you know what? Hey, if you want to feel better about yourself and maybe get a little more confidence, then there is therapy out there, and it's viable and it works.
Right, because we all have a common bond. We have a stutter.
Mm-hmm.
But there are plenty of us out there to help one another. That way you don't feel like you are in this by yourself, because you are not. There are 1 million people who stutter on this planet.
Really, I didn't know. How do you know that number? I'm just curious. I believe you. I'm just wondering how you got that.
Lots of research. Let me tell you, I've been
Well, I believe
in a
you.
lot of speech therapy. Wanna thank you for spending time with me. This has been truly an awesome conversation.
I've enjoyed every second of it, Pedro. Thank you. And again, I just want to give you praise for what you're doing. You're an outlier, and I'm grateful for people like you that are on the edge and just take these steps to get out there and talk about what has been now your friend, but then your enemy, and it just means a lot. Those aren't just words.
Thank you, Mr. Morris. Now, I know this will not be our last conversation.
I hope not. I hope not. I really hope not.
There are many more topics that I want to cover with you, but for right now, we will end this conversation. But down the road, we will have many more. And so I want to thank you for being a guest on the My Stutter Life podcast. And I hope you have a great evening.
I hope you do too, Pedro. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Be well.
You too. Have a good night.
There you have it. If you like this podcast, head on over to Apple iTunes, subscribe, rate, and review. You can follow me on all of my social media with My Stuttering Life. Thank you for listening, and we will talk again.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/new. That's anchor.fm/new to get started.